Kim Kardashian has been married. Jada Pinkett has been married. Amber Rose has been married. Gabrielle Union. None of these women are marriage material. Men have a tendency, I don't know what it is, y'all be thinking y'all magicians and that y'all can turn a hoe into a housewife, and it doesn't work that way.
Say this all the time.
I'm gonna be honest. Will get the worst type of woman, and you've been warned about her, but you go thinking that you could save her, and you wife her anyway. And then when everything that you were warned about comes to pass, now you want to get on a podcast complaining about how all women ain't shit. No, you've been dealing with. Mm-hmm. Your Mima told you that girl was a floozy, but you didn't want to listen.
Throw that man some grace.
You wild. Like, I look like I got grace.
God will show.
I got a little bit of that.
So you don't expect nobody to show you grace?
I don't feel like I'm entitled to it. If that man decides to show me grace, great. If he doesn't have to. Well, if I make a bad decision, that's not the next man's problem.
To leave people the fuck alone. You know what I'm saying? Like, because that would solve a lot of problems when you realize that okay, cool, I was initially attracted to you, but now that I'm over here, I realize I can't necessarily rock with you. At that moment, you have the option to leave that person the fuck alone. Before y'all get invested, before you start to try to bank on a person's potential, because once you banking on somebody's potential, bro, that's where the manipulation starts. Because what you've done is now you've decided what that person's potential is supposed to be. And you start trying to steer them towards that. Like, oh, you would be great if, oh, he would be the perfect man if, she would be the perfect woman for me if, and you start trying to steer them towards that if, that way you can, you know what I'm saying? Like, bruh, no, learn to leave people the fuck alone, dog. Like, hey, listen, bruh, if you don't like a woman that be in the club all the time, perhaps the shorty that you met in the club.
Cause that's what
you asked the question. Ask it.
If we, like today, okay, we decide, okay, we like each other, whatever, we start dating or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
How would you know how many men?
Okay, check it out. So if I'm dating you, eventually, we're going to have to go around your family and your friends and my family and my friends, okay? And there is a little unwritten rule with guys that when that guy shows up with the neighborhood hoe, you can see it on the nigga face. Excuse me, man, I'm still fucking talking. Because when ma'am, why every time you ask me a question, I try to answer?
Is it harder than you thought it was going to be?
What?
Like just dating in general.
Oh yeah, I mean, because I never dated before, so I didn't have anything to compare it to. Mm-hmm. But yeah, I definitely think it's harder, than I thought. But I am optimistic.
2 weeks ago, US Weekly interviewed Tia Mowry by Zoom. And in this interview, there was a question asked about her love life and how hard it was or easy it was for her to recover from her divorce from Corey Hardrick. And as you can guess, it has not been easy for Tia Mowry. We've seen her make several rants about it. We've heard her talk about it on Twitter. We've heard her talk about the lack of men that are willing to court women in today's market.
Last relationship when dating was, when I was, dating this person, it was beautiful. It was amazing. It was wonderful. There was courting that was, involved. And I was saying how I feel like that's no longer, present, meaning like people just don't court each other anymore. And this person was like, well, that's old news. Like people just don't.
Well, that's not true. People still court, but I feel like just the way the culture has progressed and how a lot of the women act, a lot of the guys just feel like they don't need to. You know what I'm saying? That's because of the culture though, and a lot of these doctrines that a lot of these younger females are following. And a lot of these guys are just like, man, I'm not gonna court no 304. You feel what I'm saying? But that's what I really think it is. I don't think there are guys who's courting still, but it's just so hard to distinguish between 304s and the actual good women.
Do that anymore. There's just this whole new way of doing things. And I'm like, you mentioned tradition, and I think that's where it kind of needs to go back to, where, a man is courting a woman and showing her, how much he appreciates her.
that hasn't stopped Tia Mowry from empowering other women to put themselves first. Because again, focusing on themselves is what really matters.
I had actually, lost my grandmother. We had lost Elena Housley, and both of them at the same time. There was just an aha moment in me where I said, you know what? You need to tap in, see what's really going on with your happiness. Life is short. Let's go. Let's start working on you and really focusing on what really, really matters here, which is, at the end of the day, your peace, your joy, and your happiness.
And don't get me wrong, focusing on yourself is very important. I would tell any man or woman to consider that. The issue is when people focus on themselves so much, they forget to add value to the opposite sex. And this is what Tia Mowry has found out. You see, when she met Corey Hardrick, he was not doing as well as her. She brought him into the industry. And even though they started doing very well, she felt like at a point she was putting more energy into the relationship than she was putting into herself.
I mean, but when you get into a relationship, you gotta realize your relationship becomes, you put that before everything. You feel what I'm saying? Your relationship becomes first. If you're not willing to put your relationship first, you shouldn't be in a relationship. You know what I'm saying? You should.
And so what happened?
Wait until you feel like you've already did everything you needed to do personally to do it. Because now when you get in a relationship, you become one now. So now that comes before everything. You see what I'm saying?
And to her, she wanted to leave him. He tried to stick around and beg her not to, but she left him. And so fast forward, Dima. Now we're at Thanksgiving, and this is where it gets interesting. Because Tia Mowry, who's recently been hanging out with Gabrielle Union, for whatever reason, she takes this particular photo. And if we go to the particular...
That ain't a good person to be hanging out with. It just hurt. Anybody connected to Dwayne Wade is just not a good person to be hanging out with. I'd say the same thing about like Jada Pinkett, you know what I'm saying?
Instagram page of Tia Mowry, we see her and Corey Hardrick with the family. And she puts as a caption, "We gonna be all right." Now, what does that mean?
We gonna be all right.
Well, before we get into that, I want to talk about something else. And that was a compilation video series that I came across where you saw women who were married to some man and they divorced that man and the man moves on. These women typically have a very hard time getting over it. Let's play that clip and come back.
So, the last few days have been super traumatizing for me. My own fault. It's always my fault. But anyway, I didn't know. Well, I guess I did know, but that I would have this really strong reaction physically, trauma reaction to finding out that my estranged husband has been having a new relationship. Now, I'm not saying that he shouldn't. We've been separated for a year, but we see each other a lot and we spend time as a family together a lot. And I had asked him many times, "Are you seeing somebody?" And he said, no. He kept saying no. And then he'd take me to dinner and we'd have a nice chat. And I have a boyfriend that I've been seeing. So it's not like I think he shouldn't. Don't get me wrong. This isn't about that. But what happened was because he didn't tell me, I felt safe around him still, like in the way that he still loved me. So he invited me to go on a trip with him and the girls, and I said yes. He bought this big boat for his business, and so we went and got on this boat. But I said yes because I didn't want, you have this feeling when you first get separated that you can't imagine your husband and your children having a great time without you or with a new woman. And I was like, okay, I don't know whether I should go or not. Like, I don't want him to think something, but then my daughter said, well, he's not going to ask you again, so you should come. And I don't know why she said that, but I do now. So I went. And then when I was there, I found out, because he kept texting, and I just was like, what's going on? And anyway, I found out through some very horrific texts, my fault, that not only was he having a relationship, but they're totally involved in saying I love you and blah, blah, blah. And I had this physical trauma. Like, I went off the rails. It was terrible. And I was physically ill.
Now, guys, let's consider this. When Tia Mowry was on that podcast, she
left. That's the stuff. That's what I don't understand. You talking about now you all depressed and ill, but you was the one that left the relationship. Like, you know what I'm saying? Like, he did what he's supposed to do. He moved on, but now you physically ill, but you the one who left. Like, well, these people be delusional.
mentioned that she was in a good relationship with Corey Hardrick, but she left that relationship and she got into a sea of the dating world that didn't take her seriously. You want to know why? Because firstly, if you're really trying to date somebody, no man wants you to be going to see your ex-husband for Thanksgiving or Christmas, which is what she's going to do. She spent last Thanksgiving with Corey Hardrick and last Christmas, I believe, with Corey Hardrick. So you gotta just believe that no man in his right mind will take on a relationship like that. Like, most real men will want you to be with him, not accepting whatever she wants to give. And that has been the problem.
Yeah, that's exactly the problem. She thought it was gonna be easy out here. It ain't easy like how she thought it was.
Mowry doesn't want to give out anything that a man that she would like outside of Corey Hardrick is willing to accept. She wants to give the bare minimum. And this is probably why she's interested in getting back with Corey Hardrick now, according to that status. And the real reason is nobody is invested in her like Corey Hardrick is. And I'm not trying to put down women with kids or anything like that. But if you have a man that you are married to and you have kids by that man, it only makes sense that that man is going to be more invested into you than a man that you just started dating off the street that doesn't have any children and you have children. It's just going to be a process for that man to find that sort of value in you. But the fact of the matter is, Tia Mowry has Corey Hardrick, or she probably would like to get back with him. And the reason why is because if she doesn't, he'll easily get back with somebody else, or he'll get with somebody else. She understands that. And secondarily, what she's looking for in the market, she can't attract. And this is something that a lot of people don't really understand. You know, it's one thing to want something and to desire something. It's something else to get it. Like, there are some people who want to get paid $1 million an hour to do their job. And if you could get it, I think it's great that you can get $1 million an hour. But the reality is, you probably can't get $1 million an hour, right? Because you're probably not worth it. It doesn't mean that you won't get it one day, but you're probably not going to get it today because what you do is not worth $1 million an hour. It just isn't. And you can feel about yourself however you want to feel. But the reality of the matter is the market is not willing to pay what you're looking for. And so when you go out there and you kind of like learn a lesson and things are harsh, you kind of have no choice but to go back to what you know. And that's possibly what she's going to do here. And this is something that I want to say to all people who are in relationships, single, or anything like that, especially women. When you want to divorce your husband or leave your husband because of your own happiness, because you want to be successful and be free, I can understand if it's abusive, but if it is not, then you have to understand that the grass may or may not be greener on the other side. Unfortunately, this has been Tia Mowry's experience. The grass actually isn't greener on the other side. She has a lot of problems. The men that she probably would like to meet or to be interested in her are already married, or already understand the fact that they don't need to marry her or don't need to take her that seriously to get what they probably will like out of her. And if she doesn't want to do it, they could just easily get rid of her because she probably wouldn't be, somebody that some guy can be impressed with who's already very wealthy. And I think this should be a pretty good lesson to ladies out there. I'm not trying to tell you to stay in any kind of relationships that don't serve you, but you got to understand that relationships are hard work. It's not just hard for you. It's extremely hard for the man. Every month he needs to put the money on the food bill, take care of his wife, take care of his, kids. And I know the women put in, opportunities too. But that's why so many men are shying away from marriage, because of the responsibilities. But guys, what do you think? It's your boy O'Shea Duke Jackson. back at it.
Tell me what y'all think about the video in the comments, man. He said he made a lot of good points, though. Really informal video, man. But hey, see you guys next video. Let's get it.